Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is officially my birthday week. I am super excited for my birthday this year. I am turning 35, and I remember when I was in my late 20s and I had several people tell me that one of the best parts of turning 30 was just as you get older, you just don't care about as much stuff and you're more confident in yourself. And I have definitely found that to be true, and I am just loving life this year. The last 5-6 years, I feel like have just been incredible years of personal growth and becoming much more myself, and I'm just so thankful. And I'm excited for what my 35th year will hold. So, as I am turning 35, I am also thinking about the fact that in 5 years, I will be 40. So today, I am making a list of 40 books to read before 40. It honestly took me a while to make this list because 35 just feels like such a big milestone birthday for me, and it is a very meaningful and special birthday for me this year. And I wanted my list to be reflective of that and to be carefully curated and very meaningful and symbolic books. I spent a lot of time thinking and rethinking my list to make sure that it felt reflective of where I am, and some of them definitely do. Some of them I just kind of threw on last minute because I'm like, oh, this would be fun. So I like it though, because I like that it is reflective of the thoughtful and planning side of me and also the fun-loving random side of me. So that's what we have. I have loosely grouped my list according to category. Some of my books fit in more than one category, so yeah, I just kind of made some arbitrary categories. The first of which is classics. I have loved classic books since I was about 12, and it's still one of my favorite genres. So it didn't surprise me that the majority of the books that I knew right away I wanted on my list were classics. Book number 1 is Les Miserables. I have wanted to read this for a long time, but it has felt intimidating, mostly due to the length of the book. It is over 1,000 pages long, which I have done, but I just have to build myself up for it. Book number 2 has also been on my list for quite some time, but the intimidation factor has been there because this is another one over 1,000 pages, and that is The Count of Monte Cristo. Both of these first two I have seen movie adaptations for, but 9.9 times out of 10, the book is always better, and I would really like to just read the original book. The next 3 books represent an ongoing challenge that I've had for myself, and that is just to read all of Dickens' works. Dickens is one of my favorite authors. I absolutely adore the way that he writes, the words that he uses, the way that he describes. He often will make me literally laugh out loud the way he describes his characters and brings them to life and reflects the quirkiness and the randomness of what people do, but it also makes sense in the story and in human nature. So I only have 3 of his books left, of his full-length novels. So the third book on my list is Nicholas Nickleby. I actually started this one and I can't remember why. I didn't get very far, so I look forward to completing it and going all the way through. Book number 4, also by Dickens, is Our Mutual Friend. This book, I have to admit, I think one of the reasons that I haven't read it yet is because the title just seemed kind of boring to me. I actually don't even know what the synopsis is or what it's about. But I have to keep in mind, I read Bleak House by Dickens a couple years ago, which is another one I was like, this sounds very boring, but it's one of my favorite Dickens books. I really liked that one, so hopefully this will be another pleasant surprise. And the 5th Dickens book I am not looking forward to, and that is The Pickwick Papers. This is one that I started, I got at least a quarter of the way through, if not halfway. I might have been in high school or maybe recently graduated, but I did not like it. And it's been so long, I don't remember why. I just remember I really didn't like it. I didn't like the characters, and I wasn't a fan, but I have to revisit it because I am going to complete my goal of reading all of Dickens' books. So I will be doing that one. Number 6 is Moby Dick. Another one that I have been intrigued by for years because it's a classic, but you know, it's also about a whale, and that is not my typical genre. But it's one that I have yet been intrigued by, so I am adding it to the list and I'll finally read it. Number 7 is Frankenstein. This is another one that's it's been on my list for a long time, so I wanted to knock it out. And again, I know the very general synopsis, but mostly because, I mean, Frankenstein has been made and remade and stories and spin-offs and all these things, so I feel like I know the bare bones of it, but I don't know how much of what I know is based on these remakes of remakes of remakes and what is actually from the book. So I look forward to, again, reading the original. And number 8 on my list is a Shakespeare play, and I don't have a specific title at this point. If you have any recommendations, let me know. I read, again, I think in high school, 12th Night, but I made it, I want to say like 96% of the way through, and I stopped because it was not necessarily my favorite read. And ever since then, I've been so annoyed at myself that I didn't just read that last little bit. So this is one that just I was thinking would be nice to round out my classic reading because I've never read a Shakespeare, so it's on my list. The next section of books on my list is a section of recommendations from friends and family, starting with my sisters. My sisters are both also really big readers, and we all really enjoy reading and talking about the books that we're reading and sharing recommendations. So the first one in this section, recommended by my oldest sister, is How to Say Babylon by Sophia Sinclair. This is a memoir, and just from reading the description, it sounds like it's about the author growing up under a very controlling patriarchal father and the way that he controlled her life and her story of kind of coming out of that and growing into the person that she is now. This sounds like it's going to be a very powerful read, and I'm looking forward to it. My other sister recommended Watership Down by Richard Adams. This is another one that I don't know that much about, but it sounds like it's about some animals, probably rabbits, whose home is being threatened. And so it's about their journey to safety and also the things that they encounter along the way. And it sounds like there's going to be some really good themes about courage and home and the difficulties and hardships along their way. This next book was recommended by my best friend, and she has been telling me about this book for years, and that is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. I'll be honest, I feel like I've said that for a lot of books so far. I'll be honest, I actually watched the movie of this a handful of years ago, I feel like, and I had no idea what it was about because I went into this movie thinking that it was a sweet, feel-good, happy story, and it is not that. It is a very somber and serious World War II historical fiction. It was a very emotional experience because I went into it expecting one thing, and then on its own, it's a very emotional story, and then because it's not what I was expecting, it was a lot. So ever since then, I was like, well, I don't think I'm ever gonna read the book. And then time went on, I was like, okay, maybe I should think about trying it. I just need some time and space from watching the movie. So I think that sufficient time has passed, and I do look forward to reading this. I will probably make sure that I'm in an okay headspace before starting this one, but I am looking forward to reading it, and especially because it is one of her favorite books. Book number 12 is a recommendation from Ellen from the Ellen Made Book Club. She recommended to me Piranesi. She read this book for her book club a couple months ago and spoke very highly about it, and I've heard so many people say that it's so good. She also said that it's best to go into this book completely blind, so that is what I'm doing. I know basically nothing about it, but I'm very excited that she chose this book for my challenge, and I really look forward to reading it. Book number 13 comes from Mimi from It's Mimi Duong, and she recommended Artificial Conditions from the Murderbot Diaries series by Martha Wells. This is a sci-fi series, and it looks like there are, I believe, 9 books in the series. I don't read very much sci-fi, but I have really enjoyed some of the ones that I've read, so I'm very much looking forward to trying a new one. Book number 14 on my list, recommended by my wonderful friend Laura, A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I read The Invisible, where's my bookshelf? I can't feel it. I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by the same author, and I loved it. It's the only book I've read by the author so far, so I am looking forward to this one. It sounds like there's going to be magic involved and something about smuggling between different sections of London, I guess, color-coded sections, and magic and friendships and enemies and all sorts of things. So it looks like a fun read. Book number 15, recommended by my friend Kristen, is Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood. I have never read a book by Allie Hazelwood, but I keep seeing her name everywhere, so this will be another fun one to try. I know that she writes romance, and my friend said that this book is actually a YA book, and I guess that's not her typical genre, so it's a YA romance. This book is about Mallory, who I guess her family was really involved with chess, but she did not have an interest in doing that. But she decides to play one game against the current world champion, and she ends up winning. And of course, he's not super happy by being beat by someone who is new to chess. And I'm assuming because it's a romance that sparks will fly, romance will ensue, and there will be plots thickened. So this will be a fun one to read. And number 16, my friend Emily recommended some Abby Jimenez books. She said anything by her. So I went through a list of all of Abby Jimenez's books and found the ones obviously that I've already read, and of the ones that I have not read, I was intrigued by The Friend Zone. This book is a romance, but it also sounds like it's going to have a lot of really strong friendship themes, and I love books about friendship. Kristen finds out some medically difficult news about herself shortly around the time of her best friend's wedding. So she's trying to process what she's going through personally and also be there for her friend, and then she meets the person who's the best man, and again, I'm assuming sparks will fly, romance will ensue, etc., etc. I have really liked everything that I've read by this author, so I'm looking forward to this one. Thank you so much to all of my friends and sisters who recommended books for me. I am so excited for these additions to my list, and I look forward to reading them. This next section I am calling completing books that I've started reading. No, that's not it. I'm calling it completing books by authors whose collections I want to finish, maybe. So technically all the Dickens books, I was debating if I should put the Dickens books in the classic section or in this section because technically I'm completing my reading through of Dickens books, but it felt better leaving them in classics. So there you have it. Book number 17 is a Frederick Bachman book, and that is Things My Son Needs to Know. This is one of his shorter books. It's just about 200 pages, a little over 200 pages. And this one is actually nonfiction. He's talking about becoming a parent for the first time and the wonderful parts and the difficult parts and the complicated parts and all of those aspects. His writing is always very deep, and he always has profound insights in his fiction books, so I'm assuming that his nonfiction book will as well. Book number 18 is another Frederick Bachman, and that is The Deal of a Lifetime. This is a short story. It's only 65 pages, and it's about a father and son who haven't seen each other in a long time, and they are reuniting and talking about life, and the father wants to tell his son a story about a little girl that he knows that is sick. It looks like what I would classify as a Christmas tree on the cover of the book, so I'm wondering if it's set at Christmas time, or maybe it just happens to be a pine tree. I don't know. From the description, it sounds like it will be an emotional story, but with some really important themes about life and how we want to live our lives and things like that. Book number 19 is Nicola Berry by Leon Moriarty. Leon Moriarty, as I've said before on this channel, is one of my favorite authors, and she also wrote some children's books. I believe the first one in this series is called Nicola Berry and the Petrifying Problem with Princess Petronella. I love a good alliteration. Nicola Berry is going about her life when someone from another planet comes and needs somebody to travel back to his planet with him and try to convince their planet's princess to not use the planet Earth as that planet's trash can, in essence, garbage dump. So Nicola is on a mission to save the planet. I have just loved everything that I have read by Leon Moriarty, and I'm really interested in trying one of her children's books. Okay, this next section is called Books I've Always Wanted to Read. And some of them come, I guess, with some explanations because some of them are kind of random. The first three on this list are topics or people, historical things that I have just always been interested in and I want to finally read about them. So book number 20 on my list is a book about Alcatraz. I'm thinking the book called Inside Alcatraz, My Time on the Rock by Jim Quillen, but if any of you know of another book by Alcatraz that might cover, I don't know, I really want to know like the history, how it became a prison. I want to hear about what it was like as a prison, and I want to hear about some of the famous prison escapes. I don't know why it has always been something that I've wanted to read about. I visited San Francisco as a child, so I don't know if that's what started it. I wasn't able to visit Alcatraz itself, but I was just I remember seeing it across the water. And yeah, I'm curious to learn more about it. From what I know about the prison system today, and for sure the prison system back then, I think it will be a frustrating read, but I am very curious about the history of the Alcatraz prison. Book number 21 is a book about the Memphis Belle, which was a B-17 airplane in World War II. I remember watching the movie Memphis Belle that came out in 1990. I was shocked when I realized how old that movie is, but I watched it a handful of times when I was younger. But obviously, so I read the movie version of some of the real events, but I'm very curious to read a book with more of the, I'm hoping, interviews and letters and historical perspectives of the Memphis Belle. So the book I'm looking at is The Man Who Flew the Memphis Belle by Robert Morgan. So it'll be really interesting hearing from his perspective. Book number 22 is about somebody else that has always fascinated me, and that is Amelia Earhart. There are two books that I was looking at. One is called One More Good Flight by Rick Gillespie, and that one sounds like it talks some about her and her flight, but it focuses primarily on the investigation surrounding her disappearance. And the second book is called East to the Dawn by Susan Butler. And that one sounds like it's more of a full biography with her early life and who she was as a person and leading up into her final flight and some about the investigation. So I have to decide which route I want to take. I am thoroughly intrigued by the investigation aspect, but also I think I'm leaning towards more of the full biography because I want to know more about her as a person as well. And hopefully it will also discuss some of the investigation and all of the things that happened following her disappearance. Okay, and the last two books in this section are books that, in short, I was not allowed to read as a child, and I was always intrigued by them, so I am finally going to read them. Book number 23 is The Da Vinci Code, and honestly, I don't know that much about it other than when it came out, it caused quite the controversy in a lot of the church circles that I was in. It honestly sounds like it's going to be a really fun read with, I guess there's like clues apparently hidden in a lot of Leonardo da Vinci's works, and so it's about these two people who are trying to figure out the clues and solve the riddles, and one thing leads to another. It sounds like it's going to be a very fun read, and I'm very curious to read it after most of what I knew about it was very little and just it was controversial, so I'm excited to read it. Book number 24 is another, not necessarily a specific book. I still need to decide which one I want to read, but it's a Babysitter's Club book. That was a series that was very popular when I was younger. The first book was published before I was born, but I think they were being written kind of as I was young. But I remember seeing them at the library and just wondering what they were about. And I actually found 2 copies of the original series that I remember seeing at Goodwill one time. So I ended up buying Christie's Big Day and Dawn and the Older Boy. So I don't know which of these I will read. If you have read any of the Babysitter's Club, and if you would recommend one of those or another one, let me know. Book number 25 has much a similar story, and that is a book by Judy Blume. And again, if you have recommendations for a specific one, let me know. As I was just looking through the list of books that she's written online, I'm pretty sure I remember seeing the cover of the one otherwise known as Sheila the Great. So I think at this point, that's the one I'm gonna go with, just because I feel like I vaguely remember seeing that one when I was young. She's another author that I remember being popular when I was young, and I wanna try one. And the last book in this section, book number 26 on my list, is God and the Gay Christian by Matthew Vines. This book came out when I believe I was in early high school, and kind of similarly, I just remember it was very controversial. It was like one of the talking points for a while in our circles, and I want to read it. My views on so many things have changed quite a bit since I was young, and I want to read this for 14-year-old me that was not allowed to read it. This next section is banned books. I have read a handful of banned books over the years, and I want to continue reading some. I feel pretty strongly that books should not be banned, and we can get into all of that in another video, but the first banned book on my list is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This is another one that I don't know very much about. I know it's about a 16-year-old boy and some of his experiences, I believe, in school, and then he ends up leaving that school. But yeah, I don't know very much about it. And when I read it, I will also do some reading about why it's banned and some of the conversations surrounding that book. And I hope to talk more about that in future videos as I read. Book number 28 on my list is Catch-22. And again, I honestly don't know much about this book other than that the phrase, it's a catch-22, is a phrase that I've always heard, and I'm assuming it comes from this book, so I wanted to read it to see the origin of the phrase and also to read another banned book. And book number 29 is 13 Reasons Why. And this book is another one that I know I'll need to make sure that I'm in a certain headspace before reading it, because I know it's going to be very deep and very heavy and dealing with a lot of very heavy themes of mental health and things of that nature. I know that there's a movie, I think on Netflix, that came out within the last handful of years, I believe. So probably after reading the book, I will watch the movie as well and see how that compares. My next section of books, I'm just calling Random Assortment. Book number 30 on my list is a book by Roald Dahl. I have never read any books by Roald Dahl. I know I've seen some movie adaptations. I might have read the BFG a long time ago, but I can't really remember. But I know that his books have been so influential, and there are so many people who grew up with his books and who have very special memories of books, and there's so many adaptations of them. So I'm thinking about the BFG, maybe Matilda. I don't know. If you have recommendations of a good one to start with, let me know. Number 31, and I'm a little scared about this one, is Carrie by Stephen King. I never thought that I would ever read a Stephen King book, and I have now read, I think, 4 by him, and I've really enjoyed his writing style. Every time I pick one up, I'm very nervous because I know he writes some books that I know are going to be too much for me, and I think that Carrie is more of like an intermediate one. It's not super freaky, but it's not like I read his book Fairy Tale, I read You Like It Darker, his short story collection. What else did I read? Maybe that's it. Oh, and I read another one of his short stories. I actually didn't care for that one, but I liked Fairy Tale and his writing style. I liked the short stories. So it feels, from what I'm gathering, it seems like Carrie is going to be closer to those, but still inching more towards the more category. So hopefully I don't regret it. I am giving myself permission. Am I giving myself permission to DNF a book on my 40 before 40 list? I might have to push through. If you have read this book and you know, oh no, this is actually it's intense, please let me know, because I at least need to be very prepared and know what I'm getting into before reading it. But it's another one where I've seen the references to this book and the movie. It's another one that I just kind of want to read to understand the references. Number 32 is again another one where I will need help, and that is a graphic novel. I have never read a graphic novel, and I want to try one. I don't know that I'm going to enjoy it, but you never know. One of the reasons I'm excited about this list is because I feel like it's kind of rounding out a lot of things that I have either wanted to try or complete some things that I've started and things like that. So I'm excited to have this on my list and try a genre that I've never read. Book number 33 is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Another one that, just from reading the description and hearing about over the years, I think will be another one that I will need to space out with some of my other reading to make sure that I'm in a good headspace for, because it sounds like it will definitely have a lot of very heavy and very important themes. Book number 34. I realized as I'm filming this how many books I haven't made final decisions on, because I haven't decided for sure which one to go with, but I know I want to read a book by Bell Hooks, another author I have not read yet, but I want to. I am looking at All About Love or The Will to Change. I think I'm leaning towards All About Love, but I might decide in the moment. Book number 35 on my list is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. This book is set in 1922 and is about a man who is sentenced to house arrest across the street from the Kremlin while so much is going on in the Russian world around him. This is a book that I've heard of a handful of times over the years. I know several people who really liked it, and I believe this one also just was made into a movie or TV series or something like that. So another one that I'll probably watch after finishing the book. Book number 36 is Rage Becomes Her by Soraya Chemaly. And this book is nonfiction, and it is about anger, particularly women's anger. It explores why women are angry and what is going on surrounding that, and how so often women are told not to be angry, and yet anger is a really important tool for women and for all people to listen to and use in healthy ways. I think this will be a really powerful read. Number 37 is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This book is about 3 different women spanning a timeline of 5 centuries. It sounds like it will be a story about resilience, and particularly women's resilience, and one of the characters is someone who is labeled a witch because of their knowledge of the natural world. So there's that element. There is an element of mental health and how women, especially in certain time periods, were labeled insane because of thinking for themselves or whatnot. So it sounds like it will be a very powerful read. It is fiction, but a heavy read as well. But it sounds very interesting. Book number 38 is a book of poetry, and that is Clarity and Connection by Yung Pueblo. I read another book by him, Inward, I believe last year, and I really, really enjoyed his poetry. So I want to read, I believe it's the next one. Actually, I'm not sure which one is published first, but the next one for me, and that is Clarity and Connection. And I am down to my final 2 books on my 40 before 40 list, and these books are about writing. Book number 39 on my list is Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. This book is referenced all the time, all over the place, so I figured I should probably give it a read. And book number 40 is On Writing by Stephen King. This is another one that is always talked about, and it is, I believe, part memoir and also part advice for writers. I'm really excited about reading these 2 books to further help my craft and help my writing. So there you have it, my 40 before 40 list. I am so excited about this list. I feel like there's a great variety of genres and styles and nonfiction and fiction. It'll be a very good list to work through. Thank you for watching this video. I feel like we're celebrating my birthday together. I am really just feeling the celebratory mood this year and this week, and thank you for coming along for this, and stay tuned over the next 5 years as I knock out some of these books. And until next time, happy reading.